Let's go. Yo. Get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Rising the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. Never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast. And that's facts.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse. It's a Tuesday afternoon edition, and we're just here to talk Bears with everybody. So thanks for everybody for being here. Please throw your comments in the chat and in the video afterwards, please. Going to ask you guys a few questions, get a little participatory here. So the more y'all participate, the better, the more we can talk about. What we're discussing today is, will the Bears look to add a running back in the 2025 offseason? You're talking free agency, you're talking draft. There's a lot of different viable options. So it's something to think about. It's something to look into because, should the Bears look to add a running back, considering how many holes they have along their offensive line, their defensive line? These things are very important to this team winning. And if you don't have a good offensive line, the running back, it tends to not matter anyways. DeAndre Swift just had his most scrimmage yards of his career, I think 1345 this past season. So he performed pretty well behind a pretty porous offensive line. Real quick, Brian, what up? Trapper Keeper, what up? Plank, thanks for being here, guys. Bear down, hit that like button, hit that subscribe. So yeah, DeAndre Swift, we have like the lightning. We don't really have the thunder. I'm not a big believer in Quinshon Judkins. I really haven't been since the Bears drafted him, to be quite honest. And I don't think he's shown it in the opportunities that he's had. He's a solid short yardage back and gets you the touchdowns, but he's not someone I'm banking on this season. And we know Ben Johnson comes from an offense where he's seen the benefits of having that 1-2 punch at running back with Jahmyr Gibbs. And when they signed David Montgomery, I mean, those two guys together accumulated over 3,000 yards this past season. It makes a huge difference for your offense. So Ben Johnson knows the importance of it. So I think it's something they will address, but do you guys think it's something they should address with all the other needs? Throw that in the comments, guys. Should the Bears address the running back position or stand pat? I'll say this. I think it's a position they've needed to address for years. I thought the Swift move was a consolation prize for, Saquon Barkley, the guy they really went after and the guy they really wanted. What up, Darius? How you doing? So, and then, a couple years before they stood pat with Khalil Herbert and Roschon, and I didn't want that. I didn't expect that to produce a lot of good results, and it did not. So it's something they need to address, right? So getting the thunder to DeAndre Swift's lightning is going to be hugely important because DeAndre Swift could end up being better for you in a more limited role where you're using him more sparingly and giving him, getting him out there with fresh legs. And you get a true power back in here to add to this offense. Forever Royal, what up, man? How you doing? Feel like Ben Johnson is only coaching the NFL for Travis Hunter. Got to address it. Swift is not. Thanks, Trapper Keeper. I think Swift is a good part of an offense, right? And I don't know that he should be your primary back. He's not a 3-down back. And I think, obviously, if he had a better offensive line to run behind, he could have had a potentially better season. So I'm still a fan of Swift. And I think in tandem with this power running back we're going to talk about, you could see this running offense take off. This Bears run offense wasn't good last year. They didn't want to run. They were one of the lowest teams in the league in terms of running percentage. And they just didn't do it well, which then in turn affects your play action potential. And the Bears didn't do that a lot because no one respected the run against them. So this is something you got to shore up if you're Ben Johnson, right? So the question then becomes, guys, and feel free to throw your answers in the chat. Should they address it in the draft or should they address it in free agency? Free agency, you're going to spend some money on one of these guys. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be a good chunk of your cap potentially, depending on who you go after. draft, you got that rookie contract, but a draft pick is a shot in the dark. A lot of times it's you're rolling the dice and hoping that this person is as good as you project them to be, like the Bears did with Quinshon Judkins. So you have that drawback as well. Trapper Keeper wants a between the tackles backs. Yeah, that's what we're about to get into, brother. Let's talk free agency first. Let's just go in chronological order here in terms of running backs the Bears could potentially target. And again, I'm saying power backs, guys, and it's in quotes. Like, these are guys that you can count on for those 2 yards when you need them on 4th and 2, or when you need that touchdown from the goal line. That's what I'm talking about here when I'm talking about power backs. So in terms of free agency, there's only a few that I see, and you guys might disagree, but these are the 3 guys that I think the Bears could potentially target in free agency if you're looking for a true power back. The first one, guys, and a lot of Bears fans don't seem to like this name. I do. I still do. Najee Harris, guys. 26 years old, 6'1", 242 pounds. He has 4 straight seasons of 1,000 yards plus. 4 straight seasons. In 2025, 1,043 yards, 6 touchdowns. That 4-yard average is what's really concerning. But again, if he's a short yardage back, those numbers are going to be skewed. Jaylen Warren's not an option, right? If you want the best running back from the Steelers. But Najee Harris is a guy that can get you those tough yards when you need them the most, can find the end zone when you need it. And he's only 26 years old, so he's still got some miles that you can utilize. He averages 3.9 yards per carry for his career. That's the biggest drawback. But again, if you're using him in tandem with Swift is hopefully your big play breaker, and Najee Harris is the guy that gets down and dirty for you. That's what I'm envisioning here. Now, according to Spot Track, Najee Harris's market value is going to be about $9.2 million annual, guys. So and they're saying a 3-year, $27.5 million contract. 26 years old, could be worth it. Najee Harris is not someone I would scratch off my list as a potential target for the Bears if they're looking for a true power running back. 6'1", 242 pounds, guys. He's a beast. And I just don't know if he's tapped into fully what he can be in the NFL yet. I really don't. So that's my number 1 guy. The number 2 guy, man, I mean, it's Nick Chubb. Now, you're going to notice some things with these power backs. I'm not putting Rico Dowdle on this list. I don't think Rico Dowdle is a power running back, not in my mind. Nick Chubb is a guy, though, that he's 5'11", 227. He had 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons from 19 to 22, got up over 1,500 yards. Obviously, he's had the 2 injury-plagued seasons, major injuries. You just saw Saquon Barkley have one of the best seasons in NFL history for a running back after ACL injury. It is possible. Nick Chubb might be done, guys. This would be a shot in the dark. This is a guy that has produced as a power running back in the NFL, and if he were to get healthy for a season or 2, it's a guy you take a flyer on. His average yards per carry for his career is 5.1. And in 24, he had 300 yards or something like that. He only played in 8 games, 3 touchdowns. I mean, nothing to write home about. His market value, according to Spot Track, would be just a 1-year deal at $3.3 million. I don't expect a lot of you guys to jump for joy. I don't see Nick Chubb on a lot of lists. He is a free agent. He's never been one before. There is potential that he's out of Cleveland. And if you can get him on a $3 million deal, I mean, that's pretty solid for a guy of Nick Chubb's pedigree. Now, is he future-wise? Can he produce? I don't know. I'm okay with spending $3 million to find out, though, I guess is what I'm saying. You pair him with DeAndre Swift, they both get to have fresh legs throughout the season. Maybe it works out. It's just something I'm throwing out there for you guys for food for thought. The third guy is another injury-prone guy, guys. It's J.K. Dobbins. He's never had a 1,000-yard season in his career. He's played 15 games his first season. Did not play double-digit games the next 2 seasons. He played 13 games this past season. He tends to get injured frequently, and as a guy who's drafted him in fantasy multiple times when I expected him to get past that injury bug, he has not. So he's another guy that his market value is going to dip because of that injury stuff, right? But he just played the second most games of his career, like I said. Played 13 games, got 905 yards in those 13 games, 9 touchdowns at a 4.6 yards per carry. He's averaging 5.2 yards per carry for his career, so he's a guy that can move the sticks for you if he's healthy, right? And Brian says it right there. If healthy, $3 million is a steal for Chubb. Yeah, that's his projected market value, man. So Chubb could be a sneaky option in this conversation. But Dobbins' projected market value, 2 years, 8.1 million, 4.1 million a year. So a little more than Chubb. Another guy who's injury prone. He's only 26 years old versus Chubb being 29 years old. So, I mean, I kind of ranked them in the order that I would go after him, guys. Najee Harris would be my number one. Nick Chubb would be my number two because of, like you said, Brian, that steal potential, right? And J.K. Dobbins is my number three. J.K. Dobbins is a guy with the injury history. It's hard to bank on him or Chubb, but in terms of a true power back adding to this offense and free agency, there's not a lot of options, guys. And the Najee Harris deal, that's a lot of money. That's $9 million. You're paying DeAndre Swift $8 million. So annually, you would have $17 million committed to your running back position. I mean, is that worth it? If it produces results, yeah. I mean, Najee Harris would be my number one guy, but that money makes me pause a little bit. If I'm paying this guy upwards of $10 million a year, I want him to be my every down back. And Najee Harris just isn't that. He's shown that. But in terms of being a power back, he's that guy. Forever Royal thinks Cam Akers could fit nice in Chicago as well. You know, I like that, I guess. I mean, he's another guy, 1 year deal, not much money you're going to spend. He's been bouncing around the NFL. He's still young. He's another guy with injury history. And that's going to be the common theme with these guys that are available, because if they were healthy, teams would want to keep them. You know what I'm saying? So you're going to have to take a chance on somebody free agency wise. Najee Harris maintains health, right? He maintains production, those 1,000-yard seasons, 4 in a row. I mean, as much as you want to knock him, he's consistently productive and gives you what you would expect from him. Darius wants to get the fresh legs out of the draft. Now, that's where I'm going next, Darius. So it's free agency or draft, and you obviously prefer the draft. I think I do too, right? You know, a young guy on a rookie contract. There's multiple power backs in this draft in my mind, the guys that can get you those tough yards when you need them the most. And we can get into that now. I mean, Darius, I know you're a big fan of Jeanty. I mean, if you're getting them, you're getting them with your number 10 pick. And that's just that. And if you think he's that good of a player that he will impact your team to that level, then you go for it and you get him at 10. I mean, the guy just almost broke Barry Sanders' college rushing record. So he's obviously very good. I'm not entertaining him on this list. I do consider him an every down back. He can do whatever you need, right? But he's just not a guy that I'm targeting with my number 10 pick with the amount of issues that the Bears have. So I'm looking in those second round picks. Now, you guys can tell me, second round too early to draft a running back with the needs the Bears have? Too late? What do you think? I mean, I think I'm targeting with one of my second round picks. I'm going to get this running back. That's kind of what I'm looking at. Bear Truth, welcome. Too much money in the running back position. Best go through the draft. Cheaper rotation guy. Older vet on a 1 year deal. That's kind of the Nick Chubb theory, right? 29 years old, 1 year, $3 million. See if there's any tread left on those tires. But we're about to get into the draft now, guys. The number one power back in this draft, that's not Jeanty, is Omarion Hampton out of UNC, right? 6 foot, 220 pounds, 4'4", 640. His 2024 stats are pretty impressive, right? You're not really, it's not comparable to Jeanty. None of these stats are going to be, but Omarion Hampton put up 281 carries for 1,660 yards. He had 15 touchdowns, averaged 6 yards per carry, basically 5.9 yards per carry. And he also contributed in the receiving game as well. 38 receptions for 373 yards at a 9.8 yards per catch. I mean, that's pretty impressive for a guy of his size and the type of player he is. He's a solid receiving back on top of it, so could turn into an every down back, and he probably is. But he had 2 touchdowns receiving as well, right? He's a fringe first rounder, guys. He's probably going to go in the first. There's mocks that have him going 22nd to the Chargers. The Bears would have to trade up to get this guy. I mean, you're taking. I want you to stay in pat at 10 or trade up. I don't want to trade back and lose. There's not a lot of blue chip talent in this draft at the top of the draft. There's a lot of depth, but in terms of blue chip talent, there's not a lot. And I want the Bears to get one of those guys. So you're trading back up into the late first to secure yourself a guy like Omarion Hampton. And it seems like he could be worth it. This guy has got pretty solid speed for his size. He could be turned into an every down back, like I said, contributes in the receiving game. So, yeah, I mean, this is a guy that might be worth trading up for, but again, you're giving up assets to do that. Oakstaver 76, what up, man? Hit that like button, hit that subscribe. We appreciate everybody for being here. The Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse. I am Dustin Jones. You can also find me at 4-Star Chicago Sports. Shout out to Trax. Lovely day, guys, and I appreciate the conversation. Oakstaver, I'm sorry, I got you now. TreVeyon Henderson will be the best running back in this class. A lot of love for TreVeyon Henderson. He's not on my list, I'll say that, because I feel like his skill set is more similar to DeAndre Swift's. Now, you guys could say I'm wrong. I think he's more of a speed back. He's a guy I want to get involved in the passing game. I feel like there would be some redundancy if you're adding him with Swift. He takes Swift's place probably. Eventually that's the plan, but I want a guy that's going to complement the skill set we already have in DeAndre Swift. But TreVeyon Henderson averaged over 7 yards per carry. Guy's a beast. He is, right? All right, Sean, 4-Star Chicago Sports. Kaleb Johnson, the best in the class. Here's Kaleb Johnson, guys. He's my number 2 guy on this list right now. Out of Iowa, 6 foot, 225 pounds, 4.5 40. His 2024 stats are very impressive as well. You're going to find this to be a theme with these guys. 240 carries for 1,537 yards, 21 touchdowns, 6.4 yards per carry. And that's in the Big Ten. That's good. That's very good. He's playing against some awesome defenses in the Big Ten, averaging 6.4 yards per carry. That's impressive. 22 receptions, 188 yards, 8.5 yards per catch, 2 touchdowns. That's solid. There's some potential there to tap into something, but it's not on the level of Omarion Hampton. He's an early second-round pick, guys. He's going to fall into this area the Bears are in. You could potentially have to trade up, but not into the first round, the top of the second, to guarantee yourself this guy. And we know Ben Johnson seems to like him. He seems to have his eyes on a Kaleb Johnson, right? Kaleb Johnson is a guy I would not be opposed to at all. I love his skill set. I love his stats. I love his size. He's another guy that could blossom into an every down back, using him sparingly his first year or two. And then you kind of move on from Swift, and you got this guy that's ready to step into a lead role and handle every down. Kaleb Johnson is a guy that Ben Johnson likes a lot. He's a very real possibility for the Bears. And number 3 on my list, guys, is number 1 in my heart. Yeah, and Forever Royal, you're mentioning him right now. Quinshon Judkins is my favorite running back in this draft, guys. And I'm going to dive a little deeper into him in a self-serving way, because he is my favorite running back in this draft. And I just love this guy. Watching him destroy Notre Dame, a very good Notre Dame defense on the biggest stage, that means a lot to me. Ollie Gordon is another one. Yeah, he's not on my list. I'm only going to get into 3 guys today. Quinshon Judkins, though, for his 2024 season, 194 yards, 194 carries, 1,060 yards, splitting with TreVeyon Henderson, who had 1,200 yards, 5.5 yards per carry, 14 touchdowns. He had 22 receptions for 161 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had 28 carries of 10+ yards. Not only is this guy going to get you the yards that you need when the game's on the line, those 2 yards, but he can also break them. He's not outrunning everybody, but you saw him outrunning a lot of people in that Notre Dame national championship game. And throughout the season, he breaks big runs on top of being able to run between the tackles. Now, his maneuverability in between the tackles, it can get better. He seems to seek out contact, which I kind of like. I like that he wants to hit somebody. Bare truth, Judkins, my favorite runner of the ball, but blocking is in question. Yeah, for sure, man. It's going to be a work in progress, whoever you get. Whether you're talking about the free agent guys I just listed or these 3 prospects I'm talking about coming out of the draft, you're not going to get everything you need out of them. You're going to have to deal with some faults and try to help them get better. And through the draft, that's where you want to do that. You want to develop these guys. And Quinshon can develop into a pretty solid receiving back, I think, and an every down back. I really believe so. I believe this guy can do everything for you. In a couple of years, he will turn into that. He's projected middle second round. That's right in the Bears' wheelhouse, guys. He's the guy that you don't have to trade up. You're going to take him a little higher than he'll probably go. He's probably in the 50s somewhere on most draft boards. But if you take him with your second round pick, You've shored up that position. You've gotten the guy that you need to help your offense, and you don't need to trade up to do it. And I don't think it's worth it, because I think Quinshon Judkins will end up being better than these guys. I really do believe that. I want to read a draft profile on Quinshon Judkins for you guys real quick, just to kind of, and it's got negatives, it's got positives, it's got it all. So I'm not being biased here, but the overview here from Lance Zierlein on NFL.com. He compares him to Joe Mixon. Forever Royal has Judkins as the best running back in the draft as well. My man, appreciate you. But there are some flaws, and we're going to talk about them. But he does compare him to Joe Mixon. Could you guys imagine a Joe Mixon type back on this team and getting him in the second round? I'd be all for that. His overview: Judkins is a productive runner possessing good size and great contact aggression. His running style is both urgent and a bit chaotic. He runs with good burst inside, but is more collision-based and wiggle-oriented when maneuvering through the lane. He's efficient on runs outside the tackle box, but he has a tough time outracing pursuit to create explosive runs. 28 carries of 10-plus yards. I mean, I beg to differ a little bit, but the speed isn't there like TreVeyon Henderson, that's for sure. He is wired and built for a heavier carry count and short yardage success, but the disparity in yards per carry between Judkins and TreVeyon Henderson, despite running behind the same line, is telling. Judkins might need to be paired with a slasher, but he has the ingredients needed to become a 3-down running back one. I agree with that. Like, I envision you pairing Judkins with a DeAndre Swift. You kind of complement both of those guys and use them both in their roles, and you keep them fresh throughout the season. And Judkins just continues to develop. He can play a very specific role for you to start, though, and you're not putting too much on him too fast. If he develops into Joe Mixon, that's well worth a second-round pick in my mind. 4 stars, I hear you loud and clear. That's Sean Lugo, my co-host at 4-Star Chicago Sports. You guys can check us out. We have our YouTube channel as well. Please go check us out and subscribe over there. But he has Johnson over Judkins. Listen, most draft pundits do as well. That's why Johnson was ahead of him on this list that I put together, because in terms of draft boards, Judkins is behind all these guys. But I like Judkins better. And I like the value of a Judkins, where you can get him. You don't have to move at all. For Amarian Hampton, you definitely got to move. For Kaleb Johnson, you might have to move up to secure him, right? So it's like Judkins is going to fall right in the Bears' laps, and you're not going to have to give up any extra assets to get him. And you can develop him into that every down back. I see him being that person in the NFL. I really do. So it's going to be a fun conversation to continue to have, guys, in terms of what these running backs can do, will do, when you're projecting it out, and what the Bears are going to do in terms of who they're targeting and what they feel best fits their offense. One thing I will say is that with Ben Johnson kind of calling those shots, I feel more confident this offseason than I have in previous offseasons in terms of getting what they need and to be able to run the best offense possible. Bear Truth says, Judkins is my favorite, but I need someone to be the lead back who blocks well by start of the season. Really likes him a lot. For sure. Again, that's something you can coach up. He has the body for it. I think he has the smarts for it. A very productive career, before he got to Ohio State too. Like this guy is averaged 5.5 yards per carry over 3 seasons in college football. So I'm interested to see what he's going to do in the NFL. I do have him as like my sleeper best running back out of this draft. Adam Mason, what up? Says polarizing topic. Seems like this year's big Bears debate. Brian says, keep in mind things could change after the combine. 4-Star Chicago Sports says 39 or 41. Seen some boards where KJ fell to the 3rd. Doubt that happens, though. I doubt that very highly. I've also seen some mocks where he's going in the 1st. So it's like he's got a pretty solid range there. But if you're the Bears, you don't want to wait to see if he falls to you. If you believe in that guy's the guy you need. And again, there's been reports that Ben Johnson is focused on Kaleb Johnson. So if you believe that that's the guy, I'd make a move to secure him, to make sure I can get him. I'm not going to wait for him to fall to me. You got to have some conviction when it comes to these things, and that's what I would be going for. If Kaleb Johnson is my guy, I'm going for it all the way. Adam Mason says there will be a run on running backs for sure. They'll start flying off the board. Yeah, in that early 2nd, going into the 3rd, you're going to see a lot of them go. And I think we're going to see a lot of these guys be productive in the NFL too. It's a deep running back class. It is. TreVeyon Henderson going in the second round. Quinshon Judkins going in the second round. Kaleb Johnson. I mean, that's a lot of talent right there already. Ali Gordon, like there's a lot going on there. So I think the Bears can find the talent no matter who they go with, guys, whether it's in free agency or the draft, but especially in the draft, there's a lot of good options here, right? And Sean brings up Dylan Sampson, Devin Neal, your guy, Sean, out of Kansas. Like there's a lot of talent at the running back position in this draft. Bear True says Johnson really good, but more one cut and punish on the second level and can glide some, but needs a lot of footwork when changing direction. All these guys are going to have their flaws. So that's why they're prospects. That's why they're coming into the NFL to become those things. Hopefully, you know what I'm saying? You're going to have some negatives with all these guys. You got to really look at the positives of their games and see how you can build on that and how that translates to the NFL. And can that produce some pretty immediate success if you put them in a very specific role for you? I think that's what the Bears will be eyeing. A very specific role. You're going to be my short yardage back. You're going to be my pass blocking back, Bear Truth, like something like that. Like this is what you're going to do, and we're going to build on that strength while we start to improve some of these weaknesses in your first year or two in the NFL. Adam Mason says 12 running backs with a 90 raw grade, normally 4 to 5 in a draft. Well, that's impressive. I mean that I know that there's a lot of talent. I haven't seen that statistic thrown out there. There's definitely a lot of really good talent in this NFL draft at the running back position. So that's kind of where it's going to fall for now, guys. The Bears have options. The Bears are going to be able to secure something. And then I guess the main question of this show is, should they do it in the draft or free agency? Are you going for the guy that's been an established commodity like a Najee Harris, who's number one on my free agent board in terms of a power back the Bears could target? Or are you going to take your chances with one of these rookies that you can have on a cheaper contract, controlled contract for a few years, and hopefully they develop into an every down back for you? I think I'm going draft. Obviously, I think that makes the most sense for this team where it stands right now, and it's going to be the most financially responsible thing to do as well. So it'll be an interesting offseason across the board. But running back wise, I think we all feel like the Bears need to add another back to this stable in order to stabilize the run game and improve it, right? And you got to get somebody in tandem with Swift to really attack a defense. You can't just have it be one-dimensional. When Swift's on the field, the defense knows what you're going to do. When so-and-so's on the field, you know what they're going to do, whoever that person is that you add. So it's even if you add that guy, you still have to, Ben Johnson said, make same things look different and different things look the same. There's still a lot that needs to go into it in terms of your game plan. So it's going to be a work in progress, but I think the Bears will be adding a running back this offseason. Sean doesn't want it to be in free agency. That's okay. Leave it in the comments, guys. Let us know. Should the Bears add in free agency or the draft? And who's your favorite running back in the draft or free agency that you would like to see the Bears target? You guys have a lovely rest of your day. We appreciate everybody in the chat. Again, this is Chicago Sports Podcast. I'm Dustin Jones. You can find me on 4-Star Chicago Sports as well. We'll be here for you every day of the week. Please like, please subscribe, leave those comments, and have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday, guys. Appreciate you greatly. Bear down.